All right, traders, good afternoon. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is just before 5 o'clock, Wednesday, December 4th. So we've got a couple more days to the end of the week. Today, we had, for the averages, SPY finished up 60 basis points, so recovering most or a lot of yesterday's decline, even though we did bounce, remember, at the end of the day. Qs underperformed a little bit. They were up 0.5% for the day, and IWM also finished up right around where the SPOOs finished on the day, up about 70 basis points. Gold was down, finished down on the day. Bonds, big move down on the day after yesterday's move. We'll talk a little bit about those moves too, because we talked about both TLT and the VIX yesterday, and I think we made some good points if you watched yesterday's video. So I'll get there in just a second. One thing, I try to always highlight the central kind of central theme or the takeaway for the day, and this I'm just kind of putting this out there. This is something that I think we know if you've been trading for a while. You know that overnight moves are greater than intraday moves, right? The money is made in the overnight moves, and less to a lesser extent the intraday moves, right? And that's something that you can kind of just, there's various studies that have talked about that over the last 20 years, that basically the overnight move is much greater than the intraday move. I know that I said this a few times to some people on Twitter, and I said day trading, I said, swing trading basically greater than day trading, and a lot of people came at me with anger, and because that study measures basically the opening print and the closing print, just like we're doing in the spreadsheet. And somebody, actually a few people came at me and they were like, well, I'm not buying on the open. I'm okay, but it just is what it is. The overnight moves are greater than intraday moves. So that's the theme of the day, as I argue with myself here for a second. But this is typically what happens. In my opinion, a nice day to take some profits in some things on the open. SPY, you could. So again, this column is for the day change, but just I try to talk a little bit about the percentage change from the open, because I hope it's an eye opener for people. And then of course what I want to see is where the buyers came in throughout the day, and what where was the relative strength, and what areas of the market got sold. So SPY just up. So if you came in and you didn't have any exposure on, and you were trading a lot of S&P names, again, and this is the indice. Obviously, there's a lot of different sector moves and different stock moves. So, but we always look at the index first. Up 25 basis points from the open. Qs basically did nothing from the open. Was up a little bit, but gave some profits back at the end of the day. Small caps, again, very similar to SPY for the day, up 20 basis points. Again, the move in bonds, they did come back a little bit at the end of the day, but let's start with the S&P, and you can see gold. Obviously, big move down in the VIX today, hurting if you're long premium. And if you notice a little bit of vol crush today, when the VIX goes down, remember that the volatility is a component of option pricing. So when the VIX goes down, the value of your options becomes less we call that volatility crush. So let's go over the averages. So basically, we're trapped inside value for now, right? We talked about how yesterday we had that nice bounce off of the 3070 level. That is going to be that continues to be the level to watch. Notice that I've got the 5-period moving average as well as the 20 on here. So we haven't really gained back that momentum, but Rome wasn't built in a day. I would watch these two levels, right? We've got some bumper room here between 3070, but that's really the level that we want to watch. And then on the upside, right, call it 3120. So we're kind of caught in the middle right now, a little bit of indecision until we get out of value. Notice for the month of November, we spent the majority of the month, actually the whole month, above the value area for November. Also, October, was where we really made the move, right? Kind of going back and just looking how the value areas kind of help us trade a little bit. But we're in value, so I think remains to be seen. Also the Qs, look at that crazy bar from yesterday with the Qs, or if you want to look at Nasdaq futures, so it's not that crazy looking. Yeah, that's what Nasdaq futures look like. I don't know. Maybe there's a bad print there in the Qs, but that's also inside value Nasdaq futures. Let's look at what IWM looks like. IWM actually looking a little bit better. IWM actually closed above value, right? And I think for me, I've talked a little bit about IWM. I think where we're going in IWM, if you're a little bit bullish here, is maybe top of value. That remember this value area is for 2019, so we may not get there actually this year, but that would be nice if we get all the way up here. Or if you want to level in IWM, that's going to be right around 166. Right, and again, as long as we open up here for next year, we're going to be opening up above value for the year. Look at how tight this value area is, by the way, for 2020. Again, this is developing, right? We're still using this year's price volume at price action to define the value area, but we only have a couple weeks left before the end of the year. I mentioned I would talk a little bit about TLT. There's a weekly bar. The main observation from yesterday in TLT was that we did not break outside of value. So that's also inside value. And you can see a pretty wide value area for the TLT for long bonds. So again, no breakout there. And I think we were going over the GLD chart as well, or gold. I think the same thing, close, right? Notice we did this, sorry, a little bit of deja vu, because I went over this pre-market, but we stalled out right at the top of value in the beginning of November as well. So it looks like it for now. I don't want to make this conclusion yet because I think it's too early, but we stalled right at the top of value. So really the level in gold that if you like gold or if you're positioning there, I would be watching 1484. And same thing in silver. Silver, bearish engulfing in silver today. So again, that also got rejected right at the top of value. Again, notice how important these value areas become. Top of value, major resistance, right? And again, very important. Remember what we're doing here with the market webs indicator is we're taking a weighted average of price at time. I think very important, and it shows up again and again and again. All right, so to move away from the averages, let's just talk about the sectors for a minute. So what I'm not really positioned in oil. We talked about it pre-market. I said if you wanted to, I think that they have a chance to bounce going into an OPEC meeting. Remember how trading usually works? Not always, but a lot of times it's buy the rumor, sell the news. So they haven't said what they're going to do for this OPEC meeting. So maybe there's a little bit of short covering. I would play it. We are seeing some call activity the last couple days in energy names, but remember, we saw. I know everybody has a short memory about this stuff, but we've been seeing call activity in oil names for a while now, right? For the last couple of weeks, they just haven't worked. Maybe it works this time. We saw some order flow in like PXD. And just various other names, MPC, I think MRO as well. A couple different names, right? That you've probably seen that in, for the energy stuff. It just, to me, my rules tell me that I would not really take a big trade in the energy space. Why? Because they're in defined downtrends, and that's just my rules. Everybody has different rules. My rules are to, every once in a while I will trade what's known as counter trend, but the trend is down in all these things. I don't really want to participate. And if I do, it's going to be very lightly when I do participate in counter trend trades. So if I were, maybe OIH might be something that again, still in value. I think they were talking about Schlumberger. That's also in value. The PXD, I have to check open interest. There was some calls. This thing finished up 5.7%. But again, nothing really telling me that the overall trend looks good in this. Again, I'm mostly a trend trader. I stick to the trend. And I like to buy support and uptrends over and over. Messing with downtrends, to me, a lot of money is thrown out the window when you're buying downtrends. You can get lucky, but for the most part, when you're buying downtrends, the stock will go back into the downtrend. So that's just my thought on that. Again, I don't think it's a horrible idea to have a flyer. to take a flyer in an energy name. But or a lot. What's why they call it a lotto ticket, right? Keep in mind, a lot of people don't know what a lotto ticket means. It's the cost of a lotto, of how much you pay you play the lotto. It's very easy. So what else? Metals and mining did pretty good today. We saw, if you look over here, there was some option activity in tech. I didn't jump on this thing. Tech, I think it was by the time the option activity happened, the name was already up about like 3% on the day. It was hot right out of the gate. I think in here, and I saw this VPOC up here, and I don't like to establish, it looks like we took several of them out, but I just decided not to jump in that trade. Also, like in the beginning of the day, what I'm usually doing is selling and managing positions. So I mentioned that I really didn't want to take any major positions going into that ISM number this morning. But certainly that group did well. Of course, biotech up there again. Biotech, continues to be exciting. It seems like every day we're getting either there's a deal or there's a drug being drug study that's being announced. AUPH, which we've seen a ton of call activity in, opened up at $25. Even now at 16, they were buying, I think, originally 9 strike calls, then some 7s as well. So a lot of activity, around the study that was due out. All the way up to $25, but even 16, that is hitting the jackpot in those calls. So very nice. And then the other name was at ALLK was announced that they're putting themselves up for sale. XBI, just stick with the trend, right? If you look at this, right, got really overbought, took out this virgin point of control. I think the RSI got to like an 85. And so again, this is why I don't fade trends very much. We talked about that a little bit in the room. We saw a little bit of a put buyer on this day, but look at this thing. Very difficult, right? When there's momentum, go with the momentum, in my opinion. Again, I'm not giving you any recommendations or advice in this video, just like the disclaimer said, but stick with the trend, because it can get pretty crazy, especially for something like biotech. We have to remember that biotech, for most of 2 years, hasn't done much. So it's got the wind at its back for now. And then a couple areas down here, without going through every one of these sectors, I think yesterday really the software names, had a big day, like Shopify. Still did well today, but you could see most of the software names were down. Remember, they were up big from the open yesterday, so that happens, right? So if you were looking at some of these names today and you're like, hey, I'm not really seeing much momentum, it just wasn't in the software group today. Also, the FANG stocks really didn't do much today. Google was the best one, but you could see many of them, like for example, Amazon, right, which I think some people were getting excited about, including myself. And I even, I put together a video earlier in the week. Unfortunately, nothing triggered really for Amazon, and that's an ugly looking bar. Notice the VPOC. Sometimes this happens, sometimes it doesn't. But usually that's not a place where I want to establish a position. That's a place where I want to take profits. And then what I normally do is I wait until the price gets above there. I was even giving this a chance to say if it stayed in value where it was pre-market. Nope. So it could not hold value. It actually took this VPOC out, gave you a little bit of a bounce, but again, it's just not showing the momentum. On an up day, you don't want to see a name down. That's called relative weakness, right? We talk a lot about relative strength. That would be relative weakness. But also, not only the software names, but yeah, the FANG stocks, internet stocks were pretty weak. Some of them came back from where they were, but breadth was overall strong today. But some of those groups where I think a lot of retail traders traffic in, your tech, your FANG stocks, your software names, just were not participating today. But again, one day, of course, is not a trend. They all did pretty well yesterday. Other names for option activity, you can see I've got them highlighted. MLCO. Note we saw win calls about, I think it was earlier in the week, So somebody likes the casinos here. I did not take this trade. Again, I put every trade that we see on the tape into my own personal filter. I just don't like, again, not to say that it won't work, but you have to narrow down the names that you see on the tape. So just because there's option activity, as we know, a lot of option activity does not work that we see on the tape, no matter how aggressive it is. So you have to kind of filter it into your, in my opinion, filter it into your own system. And this one just does not equate for me to take along. A couple other ones. Sanofi, I did take this trade today. I like the chart in this one. I like that it's trying to break out. There's also a VPOC up here, up at 49.72. Also the weekly chart, there's one up here as well, right around 48.50. So again, we're talking about a couple dollar move. So not that big, but that did catch my eye. And I did take that trade. CP is another name. It's a rail name. Big positioning going out this one. I like this chart as well. You've got kind of a almost like reverse inverted head and shoulders going on here. It's got to break, just like I talked about with the indices, it's got to break the value area. So it's pretty close. 240 is your bogey there. If you're looking for a swing trade, it's set up for a really good day trade today. But I would I would set an alert at 240 if you're looking to establish that for a swing trade. JetBlue, there was momentum call buyers. There was rumors about them, and I don't know what other airline it was, but they did buy some calls kind of throughout the day. I played that one for a momentum trade today. I made a little bit of money in it. I bought some at 20 cents. I think I got out at 35 cents and 30 cents. So again, that was basically when you see far out of the money calls like that, someone's really speculating. There was a little bit of Roku. Crocs saw a call buyer today, small, but sometimes for Croc, it could sometimes even small plays can work in that name. ZIOP, another pharma name, biotech name, saw some calls. MT, a steel name, and then we did see some big puts that went up in the queues. Some interesting positioning going on. So again, could be that people are speculating on the trade deal stuff or trade talk stuff. But look at the order of puts that went up here. January 202 puts. IWM also saw more puts. That went up aggressively. And then just finally, this is a chart that I talked about a little bit yesterday. The consumer staples, believe it or not, breaking out. SYY was one name that I found today. The other Cisco, the food Cisco, nice breakout here. Merck, which we talked about in the room, also breaking out. And, remember with breakouts, there's no resistance. Right? When you have something like this that's been kind of bottled up for going sideways for the last 6 months, that looks really strong to me. And then Mondelez, which also looks like, if you're looking for activity in the space, it also looks pretty good. So I'll leave it there, guys. Again, I think going back to central theme. Today I think the overnight moves were much better than the intraday moves, unless you really caught some things that were moving or some of the option activity. But we'll kind of see what we get for the rest of the week. Like I said, price in value. So we'll see if we can actually get outside of value for tomorrow, the rest of the week. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.